Hello, this is Bert Abbott. This is my story on replacing a radiator in my 1967 Morgan Plus 4. My Plus 4 was purchased a couple years ago. It was totally restored down to the frame. Had the TR4 engine totally, rebuilt. They installed dual 45 Weber carburetors on it. The only thing that they didn't install back was the fan on the mechanical fan on the engine. It also has a T9 transmission 5-speed overdrive installed as an upgrade. And it also had the original radiator, which is right here on the right, with a thermostatic Craig fan installed. And here's the pusher fan that was installed, but the pusher fan was installed with brackets to the inner wings in front of the radiator. So there was no gap between the fan and the radiator. It was right up against the radiator, but it was mounted not to the radiator, but mounted to the inner wings. So I was, my first long trip in this was last year in October. I went to a British car show up in the Charlottesville area of Virginia, up in the kind of like up in the Appalachian Mountains. And I took a drive. Part of it was on interstate. So, with that T9 transmission, I was getting up 65, 70 miles per hour highway speeds. And I noticed that the temperature gauge was kind of like right in between normal and hot. Wasn't sitting just above normal. It was kind of like reaching towards that H. So I was, okay with that until I started hitting the mountain and lugging up a mountain in lower gear. That needle on the temperature gauge started to hit the lower H on the, for the hot. So that's when I became very concerned that I might be overheating. The other tidbit on this is when they installed this fan, they installed it to a lever switch on the dash, one of the existing lever switches on the dash. So there was no thermostatic switch that would switch it on and off. Basically, when I got into the car, started the car up, I just popped the switch and turned the fan on, so it was on all the time. So I knew that the fan was working. It's pretty loud, and so it was blowing air, but I'm not sure it was blowing enough air to get the temperature down enough going up hills or going faster than 70 miles an hour. And of course, the drive up there in October, the weather was cool, 60 degrees, 65 degrees. So it was a nice, cool fall day when I drove up there to this particular car show. I did, when I got back home, I started digging into some internet searches on, overheating Morgans, and found a couple of articles by a gentleman, Larry Dalphy, and I'd like to do a shout out to him. He's a member of the Morgan Plus 4 Club, National Club, and I was able to get a hold of Larry to give him my experience with this Morgan overheating, and we did some diagnostics, particularly on the original Smith's TT1200 temperature sender that fits right up here in the radiator. So I did some diagnostic tests that Larry advised me on, and found out, yes, the temperature sender works, but between the temperature sender and the gauge, it reads high. So Larry gave me a fix there to using a diode and a resistor in series with the temperature sender to bring that temperature more in proper alignment, to reduce the temperature on the gauge slightly. But while I was looking at it, I saw that this appeared to be the original radiator. And I said, well, you know, I would really like to have a fan that, you know, would be thermostatically controlled rather than just turn it on all the time. So I went ahead, did a little bit of an internet search, went to, you know, I found some very expensive $750, $800 radiator replacements from the UK and through some of the Morgan dealers. So I looked at eBay, found some of the Chinese radiator manufacturers and sellers, one in particular called Winter Racing. I found that radiator and really good reviews, even from some Morgan owners and other British car owners that had replaced using their radiators. I emailed the seller at Winter Racing and got their diagram of, you know, the radiator that they produce for the 67 Morgan. And sure enough, I was concerned that they have the 5/8 inch port here. That's the British thread UNF for that original Smith's you know, temperature sender. And sure enough, it was marked properly. The only thing I had to do when I got the radiator in was they had partially drilled out, you know, the entire hole. It's totally threaded, but at the bottom I had to drill out, take a measurement on the old one and get the right size drill bit to finish out drilling the hole so that the, you know, the whole Smith's temperature sender would go all the way in. So I was able to get that done, and you know, now that it fits in solid. But in addition to the temperature sender, Winter also puts in an metric M22 by 1.5 port, threaded port, so that you can install a thermostatic switch to operate the fan. So, you know, I went on Amazon, found a brass M22 to 3/8 inch NPT bushing that will fit in here and accept the 3/8 inch NPT thermostatic switch, which most of the ones you find are that particular thread and NPT. So I've got that all set up. In addition, the down here at the bottom on the bottom support brackets, they're slotted so that you have some adjustment that you don't have on the original. So when you set the radiator in, you have a little bit of slotted adjustment to move the bottom of the radiator in or out, but not enough in for a puller fan, but enough to get it straight and properly, you know, tightened in and level for a pusher fan. So in addition, my 67 did come with a overflow tank, which was connected to the, you know, the port here on top of the radiator neck. But they still left the original, you know, overflow hose connected. This one also comes with a threaded overflow port that you screw into the neck when you want. So that'll be, set up. It has of course, this, small brass at the bottom of the tank for draining your radiator. Also, when you get the radiator, it's going to be a lot more shiny than this. It'll be really shiny aluminum. I actually have already scuffed this down for painting and cleaned it. I did make a mistake. I cleaned it with a Rust-Oleum tar and degreaser solution, which I shouldn't have done, and I'll tell you why. Because on this one, I'm going to be installing a different fan. I'm going to be installing a 12-inch Spal, Italian Spal high-performance fan. That the old fan was a Craig 10-inch, so I'm going to go to a 12-inch to get me a little bit more, air through the system. What I did was take some aluminum stock from Lowe's, and this is the 1-inch aluminum stock. It's 1 inch by 1/8 inch thick flat stock. It's listed as 6206 aluminum alloy. What I did was cut 4-inch pieces off of this and made S brackets. You can see them here a little better. There's 4 of them, two on each side. And what I did was, you have to bend them twice in a vise. But before bending them, I annealed the aluminum pieces by heating up the centers. Since it's the center portion of the 4-inch piece that I cut, I cut them and then annealed them by heating them up with a torch in the center and just dropping it in water. So that softens it enough to be able to bend it fairly well with a hammer. I use a little 5-pound hammer and or a 2.5-pound hammer and a vise to make the bends, and then of course drilled it in a drill press. Trimmed it off using, of course, angle grinder. Then I took it to a local welder that I use for welding to do the aluminum welding, and that's when I found out that you should only clean aluminum with acetone, because according to the welder, I'm not a metallurgist, but when you clean it with anything else, you get contaminants embedded in the aluminum, which is fairly porous and does not give you a really good weld, and required him to kind of like re-sand and clean it with acetone to be able to weld these on. But he said everything turned out well, so everything was good there. So after I mounted these, I decided to make the brackets to attach the fan, because I'm not sure that when I mount the fan on the front of the radiator that I'm going to be able to get the radiator back into the hole of the Morgan, because you have to take the grill off and the bottom box that holds the grill. You got to take those off. And fortunately, I have a mid-rise scissor lift that I'm able to get it up in the air about 40 inches, and it was still a pain to get that radiator out. So, with a fan mounted on top of it, on the front of this radiator, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get it back in the hole. I think I can, but I'm not quite sure. So, I wanted to be able to, if I couldn't, I can take the fan off and just be able to put the radiator in, and then the fan goes in. So here is the Spal fan with the brackets. So I made the brackets. These are kind of like what the brackets look like. It's just 1 inch stainless steel off of Amazon. I think it's like 10 of them for like, I don't know, $12. And it's stainless steel, 1 inch, and I believe it's 0.04 thickness. So it's very, very, you can't really bend it with your hands. Once again, I had to get the angles and make the brackets kind of like one at a time to fit. And I'm not very good with angles, so my wife is a card paper crafter. So she made me some 1 inch strips of some stiff, very stiff paper, and I was able to use the paper to get the correct angles that I needed to bend. And then once I got them bent, I was able to fit them, do the marks for the holes, and kind of like slide fit them in. Now, when as far as the attachments, I use these button head screws. They're 1/4 inch. They're all the same for mounting up against the brackets here, as well as mounting these brackets to the fan. They're black. They're stainless steel, and they've got of course, nylocks with washers, and they're all available on Amazon. They're already painted, kind of coated black, stainless steel. They don't they don't stand proud, so that they'll knock up against the radiator when they're in there. In addition, what was really important and kind of I had to measure and try to find were these rubber bumpers. There's 4 holes on the fan to mount. Like, you can either use them for screws or whatever, or these kind of like rubber bumpers. And I was able to make measurements and found these on Amazon. They're kind of like for, I don't know, like crock pots or whatever. They're kind of like, you can see the rubber head that fits through the hole and locks into place. These lock really tight, and they're not soft rubber. They're like a 60 on the durometer for hardness on rubber. I mean, they're really good, just middle of the road rubber, and the hardness is just perfect for sitting on for dampening and sitting up against kind of like this soft aluminum radiator facing. So I would strongly recommend that if you're going to mount a fan to a radiator, especially one that's about 6 pounds like this one is, that you have a rubber isolation dampening on your fan. Very happy with these. And of course, when you go to mount these, you want to be able to take the fan off without taking these bolts out, because you won't be able to take those out because they're so close to the radiator. So that's why I wanted an attachment with these screws and bolts here, so that I can, underneath the car, I can take the fan off the radiator without any problem. So that's, the next piece, of course, is for me. I've been waiting for some warm weather. It's been really frigid here in Virginia over this past month, but tomorrow I'll be able to take this out and with 60-degree weather, and hopefully get it spray painted black so it'll match. And once I get it all painted up, dried, I'll be able to go ahead and try to install it with the fan. Hopefully it'll go into the car with the fan already installed on it. Otherwise, I'll have to take the fan off and then put the radiator in and then put the fan in. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. The other piece will just be adding another wire from the, to my relay, because the original fan was, of course, hooked through a relay that was hooked to the lever switch. Well, now I'll just have to wire the thermostat switch into the relay where the fan switch goes, and I'll have an either or. I'll have the fan switch on the dash, or the thermostatic fan, which is set at 185 degrees. So hey, leave comments or in below. Let me know if I've helped you, or if I'm maybe should try something else besides what I've done here. But anyway, I'll also leave a source for all the parts in the body. Most of this stuff is Amazon. The 1/4 inch screws and bolts, washers. They're considered like furniture style, but they are stainless steel, so very inexpensive. The 1-inch stainless steel, I think, was like 10 pieces for like $13. Very inexpensive stuff to be able to fabricate your own brackets. And believe me, you'll need 10 of them, because a couple of them are going to be, trial and error. So, but that's it for now. And maybe I'll come back and give a report on how well this fan and thermostat works out for me. Thanks.